And good morning. Welcome to No Apologies, Please. I'm your guest, or I'm your host. Your guest. I'm your host, Greg Meriweather. Today we got a special show lined up, man. A guy who he has a talk show called, I think it's a mouthwash talk show. That means he must have some stuff to clean up. But this guy, man, I've known him. I've known him for a little while, and we talk. We shoot the stuff together. Um, Two polarizing figures. I think people would call us. They would probably say that we're troublemakers on separate sides of. We have been troublemakers on the opposite sides of the aisle. But we're gonna really chop it up with John Schmitz. We're gonna talk about the GOP. John sometimes goes through some things that we probably don't know he goes through, just in his own in the camp, and we're going to discuss it today. We're going to talk about some bills that have passed that I think could be kind of detrimental to race relations. We're going to talk about Alabama passing some bills that I saw, and then also you got President Trump. You got 6 days, got a big bill in front of him, got a big debt in front of him. And we're going to talk about that as well, But before we get into that, man, I want to touch on some things that I see going on in the community in the city of Indianapolis. And so, yeah, welcome to No Apologies, Please. Again, I'm your host, Greg Meriweather. So, I talked yesterday about just the violent crime in the city of Indianapolis, and I was a little upset. Um, let me say this before anybody gets a little crazy. Yes, spring has sprung, so therefore I'm a little springish today. So I decided to wear pink seersucker with a little baby blue to just kind of symbolize that the seasons are the season has changed. Even though it's we won't even speak on the weather. I'm inside though, so nonetheless we'll that's why I'm wearing pink today. So spring, thanks spring. So I want to look at this really. First, I want to talk about this. I talked to uh, one of the moms of the slain Timothy Brown from Timothy Brown Jr. from the Broad Ripple incident, and just sent my condolences. My heart just goes out to that family. I know that they're from what I've known for a long time, they're good people. And I've always um, joked around with one of the moms from Washington High School, and so just sending my love to that family, the Brown family, as well as the biological mother that I believe. Um, so just wrap our arms around that family and that community. What I do want to talk about on that subject is I do believe that there was a young lady involved. I have not seen. I've tried to look her up, but allegedly there was a young lady involved in that act that took place in Broad Ripple. I've not seen much news about her. I'm not sure if she's been arrested. But if not, I'm just an accessory to a murder is definitely a crime. And the reason I'm putting that out there is because I want young ladies to understand that when you get involved, I've known a couple of young ladies and some seasoned ladies as of late who have been caught up in crime, and some who are now doing time simply because of the guy that they dated and them being involved in the criminal act that he was involved in. And so, young ladies, be wise in your selection because um, ride or die should to me, being a rider to me is a supporter of my good, um, one who is able to speak to me, to take me out of the mindset of even remotely thinking about doing bad, because you care enough about me to understand that I should do nothing that's detrimental to myself, you, my community, my family. So with that being said, being a rider, we need to understand what that means. So, I do want to make sure that whatever is going on, I've not done my due diligence with IMPD to see if there's been an arrest. But from what I have heard, allegedly there was a young lady that was also involved with actually carrying the weapon into land sharks so that the um, perpetrator or the person who the alleged perpetrator could carry out that shooting that took place. Um, so I want to show this clip because I saw this. I saw this. I heard this, and I was like, "Huh, interesting," because we did talk about violent crime yesterday. So according to CNN, something is changing, and I want to discuss it. So let's look at this. This article says that FBI says homicide rates fell nationwide in 2023. This is an article from CBS News by Nicole uh, Saganya and Robert Laguerre. This was actually written on March the 19th. And it says Washington nationwide homicides have decreased by 13%, according to data released by the FBI quarterly crime report, which exhibits a downward tick in violent crime across the U.S. The data indicates a 6% decrease in violent crime overall in communities across the country in 2023 compared to 2022. Notably, cities with populations greater than 1 million saw an 11% drop in crime. Across the geographic regions of the U.S., cities in the Northeast saw the greatest reduction in violent crime at an 8% decline in 2023. By comparison, cities in the Midwest saw a 7% drop in violent crime last year, with a 6% reduction in the West and a 5% dip in the South. The new FBI data rebuts a national or nationwide perception that crime and violence are on the rise. A Gallup poll released in November 2023 found 77% of Americans believe there was more crime in the country compared to 2022. Nearly two-thirds polled felt there was either a very or extreme serious crime problem, the highest mark in the survey's history dating back to 2000. In May of 2021, the Justice Department launched a violent crime reduction strategy to issue grants to target the United States' gun violence epidemic, the rise of hate crimes, and officer shortages in law enforcement agencies nationwide. In November, the Department of Justice announced nearly $217 million in funding for hiring 1,730 entry-level officers at 394 agencies in 48 states through the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS, hiring program. So when I look at this, I'm seeing that people believe, we believe, I've believed that crime was going up. Lord, we're going to talk about that. I believe the crime was going up, and this is what I'll say. In what I believe the African American or Black community, it's like we can say violent crime is going down. I think when you see us dying at an astronomical rate, then you believe the crime is going up, violent crime, that is. When you understand that Black people have been highest on the crime rate as relates to murders and being victims, then it's hard pressed to say that we see a decrease. Chicago, 800, Indianapolis, 200 plus. You get to places like Philly, 300, DC, 300. And so you look at our community and you realize that you may think crime may be going down, but is it going down in our community? That's the problem that I'm seeing as relates to reduction. The other thing is this. They're saying it's due to, giving the money to these organizations. I will say this. I disagree. I think that when it's all said and done, the organizations, what can they do to stop crime? What can they do to stop violent crime? You're not giving them a hand up. You're not giving them a handout. You're giving them scraps. It's not like they're getting viable employment that allows them to be able to say, I have a reason or a why not to still sell drugs, not to still rob, steal, kill. So when I look at it and you say just because you're offering people scraps, that's causing them not to murder, I disagree totally. I think that some people are figuring out a reason why not to do it, or they're just not doing it, or like I've said for years, either there's a bad shot, a good doctor, or an act of God, because our non-fatals are through the roof. Indianapolis, again, has not had under 600 non-fatals since 2019. Every year, 600. So we could call it what we want to call it. At the end of the day, there's still a problem with violent crime, no matter what they're saying. So call it what you want. So I got a comment from Laura Shankheiser. The shooter took the gun out of her bra. She is an accessory to the death. I used to go to Land Sharks long ago and can't imagine ever going to a bar in Broad Ripple again after this incident. You know, as a 50 plus guy, um, the bar scene has been, especially, you know, I reached out to the young lady who is over the Broad Ripple community, um, whatever the group is called. She's been the executive director for the past 2 years, I believe. And I wanted to speak to her and just see what it is that they're going to do, what the temperature is in Broad Ripple, because I really want to understand where they're going. Because, like I said, you know, I saw the owner, one of the co-owners of Land Sharks, on the news, and he said, you know, they're taking some responsibility. I would say this, and maybe, you know, maybe some people think I'm out of pocket. If that were my child, there'd be no more Land Shark. It just wouldn't, because when it's all said and done, the negligence of allowing someone to be able to walk in there like that is a problem. And if you're going to want people to come to your place and enjoy themselves, number one, it's just like any company that you walk in and go to work every single day. The number one thing on any company's list when you walk in that company is safety. And I should be able to walk in an organization, any company, any place, and feel safe because they made the provisions or done whatever is necessary to ensure me that this is a safe place to come. Just my opinion. So, man, we're going to get into this conversation, man. I got my man. He's waiting. We're going to talk to him. We're going to talk about the GOP. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my guest to No Apologies, Please, Mr. John P. Schmitz. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, just living the dream here. Holding it down in Mars Hill.
Holding it down in the land of Mars Hill. What's been going on, man? So tell me what's been popping on your end.
What's not going on is easier to talk about. So
Yeah.
last night on the Mouthwash Talk Show, we had Jamie Rittenauer on. She's running for governor. And as you've seen possibly in the news, they are excluding the two brown people off of their debate stage on the 26th and 27th. So I called her up. We were actually doing a cross pollination, which I call that like what we're doing here. I'm talking about your show. You're talking about mine with Dion's Daily Dose. He's has a podcast up in Northern Indiana, and he was a correctional officer for 7 years. So he had some very insightful take on the prison system. And as we talked to Jamie about things, I started realizing what's working well in our state. I mean, DCS is a mess. Education is a mess. The prison system's a mess. We have, I was just listening to you talk about the murder rates in Indianapolis. So I did a little research here real quick. And I looked up the crime rates from 1974. And I picked 1974 because I was 13 on Friday the 13th in 1974. In that year in Indiana,
I was 1 year old, but go ahead.
1 year old. Okay. Well, I was surprised to see these numbers. So this is the FBI numbers, 427 murders statewide in 1974. And it only goes up to 2019. 2019 is 377. But hold on, folks. We had about 200 and we had almost all of those murders happen in Indianapolis out of the 377 in 19. So it's definitely a shift from a statewide problem to a more condensed city problem, from those stats right there. And I was surprised. We have actually, about 1,200,000 more people in population. From 74, we had about 5 million. Now we got about 6 million or something. So, so I think we're just getting numb to it, aren't we, Greg?
I think that, let me say this and you chime in. I don't think we're getting numb to it. I think we're getting rich from it.
Ooh.
I think that when I look and I see that there are people who are in government who have organizations that are focused on crime reduction, who are able to recuse themselves from voting for their organization, getting funding, and getting $500,000 grants annually. I think that there's more. It's like big pharma. There's more money in the drug than in the cure.
Ooh.
And I'm starting to see more and more people get involved in this thing called crime reduction because they know that they have really no way to stop it. But there's a whole lot of money when black and brown people are dying. That's what I see.
Yeah, and I would say, I don't want to speak for all the people in the donut counties, but some of the things I hear is, "Oh, we'll let the animals kill each other."
Hmm.
That's why should we care? They get what they deserve. And it's like, hey, I'm in it. I'm living it here now.
You know what's
Fortunately,
crazy? You know what's crazy, John? I think, yeah, when you hear that, a lot of people don't think Indianapolis or Indiana carries that level of racism. And the sick part about it is, I wrote an article um, that was focused on the Battle of the Bulge. And in this article, I can't remember the title. I was like, "The Battle of the Bulge lives in American politics every day," or something like that. And I focused on Eric Clapton. And Eric Clapton has pretty much made a living off like blues in a sense. Okay.
hmm,
He made a song called "Change the World" with Babyface. He did a whole album with BB King. He in the article he talks about how he dated black women. He's made his chops off black music, so on and so forth. And then they go back. Then I go back into this thing where England was being what they call infiltrated with foreign immigrants who were black. And there was someone running for prime minister or something of that nature. And Eric Clapton was like, England needs to remain white. And in that, he went back, and it's crazy. And I'll say this to you. It's crazy how we as black people simply accept an apology. We don't get change. We accept the apology without any real change. And so when I hear you say that they say, well, let the animals kill themselves, I'm appalled by it. I'm not shocked by it. But the crazy thing is, in the Battle of the Bulge, to explain this, German soldiers were able to infiltrate enemies because when they overtook them at certain places, they were trained to speak the language. They could speak like they were from Great Britain, or they can speak like they were Americans, throw on the uniform, and then infiltrate into your camp. And so that has happened in the black culture over and over and over again, where people were able to say, you know what, I like you. I'll tell you this. I'll say this to you. Do I think Eric Holcomb likes black people? No. I'll tell you why. His policies say that he doesn't like black people. The things that he signs say that he doesn't like black people, which leads me into this. Before you say anything, I want to talk about this. We're going to go to this clip really quickly, this article, because I'm like, I've got you here. We might as well talk about it, right?
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. So Senate Bill 202 passes with mixed feelings. This is coming from the Indianapolis Recorder. March 19th, 2024. Indiana lawmakers ended the legislative session last week with multiple bills that will affect Indiana students in the future. Of the numerous bills brought forth, Senate Bill 202 was one of the most controversial. Senate Bill 202 would make changes to Indiana colleges' tenure, promotion, and diversity policies. It would stop colleges from offering tenure or promoting faculty who do not expose students to programming that substantially promotes both cultural and intellectual diversity, according to the bill, and create complaint procedures for professors who share political opinions unrelated to their academic discipline. It would also have colleges consider intellectual diversity in policies along with cultural diversity. The bill's author, Senator Spencer Deary, Republican, West Lafayette, stated it would help more conservative students feel comfortable on university campuses. It has since garnered mixed feelings from Democrats, Republicans, and organizations in Indianapolis. And what it targets, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and who it targets, Black university faculty. State Bill 202 is clearly racist, said the leader of Concerned Clergy of Indianapolis, Pastor David Green. Green also asked to meet with Governor Holcomb to inform him of serious concerns about the bill's attack on civil rights and to challenge him to veto the bill. Holcomb turned down the request, according to a press release from the University Alliance for Racial Justice. When I see that, I'm appalled. Because if now, I remember me and the late, great Amos Brown talked about diversity probably 2 weeks before he passed. And he said diversity used to have everything to do with race.
Yeah, that seems that's logical.
and then it turned into, well, now diversity turned in what university you went to, right? What community you lived in. And now we're going to add in intellectual diversity and say how I think is included, even if how I think is not inclusive. So if I think that Black people are inferior, that's so. It's like so when I see this, and let's talk about the GOP. When I see these types of laws or things being put into play and things being signed off and could possibly be law by now and go into play in July or July the 1st, what's your thought on it first? And then what should Black people, how do you feel? I mean, what do you think we should think as Black people?
Well, I think, what you just read, I think is unnecessary.
Okay.
These college campuses need to figure this out. Are they promoting political views or cultural views, or what are they promoting? I went to Ball State, chirp, chirp. So I'm a Ball State guy. I was going to go to IU. It was too businessy for me. I like the creativity at the Ball State. Sure. But I even remember in the 1980 when I went to college that we were sort of being indoctrinated about stuff. I mean, it was there, sure. And if you were college, I know I have some fraternity brothers from the 70s, back when the Vietnam War was a big thing. And, it got to be, when did college get to be so political? It's gotten to the point now where we have to have a law written because we're going to protect some conservative snowflakes that can't speak for themselves on a campus or can't, do something else. So I would say to anyone, not just a minority or the majority or whatever, hey, say stuff that people want to listen to. If you're going to be a leader, lead people in the way that they need to be led. And let's talk about freedom. Let's don't talk about the restraints of we're going to force this person into this place. And I know, Greg, I go to areas that I'm just going to say it that white folk just probably are not as welcome as you almost feel like you're intruding in some things. And
let me tell you this: you're probably welcome.
But you feel
the feeling it may be something. But I'll say this, and I believe I can say this. I know that I've known you to be in the Hallville area.
Yeah, I've been to the Belmont Beach a couple of times.
Let me tell you something that's an unfortunate fact about Black people. Black people can be in a place that's predominantly Black. One white person can walk in that place and everybody Black is going to change.
Oh yeah. That happens.
They're not going to keep it a buck. They're not going to talk the same talk. We're not going to do all the same thing. The whole atmosphere changes once you walk in the room. And it's unfortunate that we're not people that say embrace what we're doing. Instead, we say, let us stop what we're doing and embrace what it is that you brought to the table as opposed to us. That's why no one stops. We don't stop smiling when Eric Holcomb walks in the room. We don't keep the same tone. We don't keep the same rhetoric. We don't keep the same stance. We're not Black first. When Joe Hogshead walks in the room, we take all our Blackness and we get on board with whatever it is he wants us to do, and it proves, we show it over and over and over again. And so you can still walk in the room and everybody's going to change the way that they think. I
And
promise you.
I have seen behind the curtain. You know,
Yeah.
I ran track in college and I was a sprinter. And honestly, I was the only white guy that was a sprinter. You know, I
Yeah.
was on the both relay teams, and we had guys from East St. Louis. That I mean, back in the '80s, East St. Louis was the hood of America,
I remember.
and uh, it got to the point where they would call me the N word. And I said the N word to them one time. And after that, they made it very clear that
Illegal.
cracker, you ain't
Highly
supposed to use that word.
highly illegal.
That was in, you
So
know,
Slick Witty said it works both ways. And when you say that, Slick, explain to me what you mean. Do you mean that when if a black male or black person walks into the room and it's totally Caucasian, that the room changes? I think the room changes.
but not
Let
the
me
same
say
way.
this, but not the same way.
Not the same way.
Not the same way, because it's business as usual. Here's how I'll attest to that. Go to the State House and you recognize where black people are the super minority, and you see the gall of the bills that get put on the table that know that they go against black people, and people are battling. But it's like swimming upstream, buddy. When you really get to the grit of it, it's like swimming upstream. Because if that's the case, then that bill that we just read, the Senate Bill 202, those types of things wouldn't even go on the table if someone was considering black people when writing that bill.
Well, and I think that one of the biggest things I've known, and I've been to different places, and I've been the only white person there, and you know, we need to show mercy to each other about our cultures, you know,
Sure.
and we have stigmas and generalizations about this and that, and we just need to show some mercy. I mean, I've you know, some of your normal voice, Shelley Covington, you know, she'd
Sure.
laugh at me because John, you just say the wrong thing sometimes. You got good intentions, but just sometimes you just say the wrong things. And that's when I know when people are being honest with me, that's when I know that it's working. It's like you said, the smiles and the patting on the back. It's like, hey,
Sure.
how you doing? One other thing that I notice when I go speak at, let's just put it bluntly, the GOP in Indiana is a bunch of old white people look like me. I go speak there. It is like this. You know, you don't see any. I go to a black audience and it's a whole different, there's a lot more emotion.
Sure.
And I, you know me, Greg, I'm an outgoing, outspoken guy. So where do you think I'm going to fit in better? With the old people that can't stand my bad dud jokes, or the people that are going to laugh even if they're not good jokes, you know?
Facts.
So that's, if I could, you know, any message that I can say is show mercy to our friends that aren't like us, and
Sure.
grace. I mean, both of those things will go a long way. And you know, if somebody says something offensive, or if there's a bill out there, I know we can't overlook laws, but we
No, we
need to
can't.
figure out a way to get to the point where they don't feel necessary, that they don't need to. And I'll tell you this bill that they just passed through, that says that, hey, these minorities are getting too close to us. We need to push back with some rule here, or they're just going to keep going. So
I'm going to ask you this, and you can answer it or not, but I'm going to ask it because I have to. In the state, not just in the state of Indiana, but being that we can see stuff both on the state level, and then we can see stuff in the city from a local level. Is there? I have to ask this. Is there a certain type of black person that people look for in order to have some type of leverage? Because in the hood per se, we call those people gatekeepers. They're accepted. They look like they're accepted by white society. They get to live a certain level in black society while doing nothing to help elevate black society. is there an underground thing or a format or a formula or a type of Black person in Indiana that people that the Caucasian community looks for to say that's a good one that we can work with, as opposed to someone like me who is loud and proud, happy to be who I am, and willing to
What?
speak on the truth.
Shut your mouth. I'm telling you, that's what and I'm probably not the best spokesman for the Indiana GOP. They really, uh, it's been very interesting, and you've known some of the struggles I've had with the establishment,
Sure.
and honestly, there's a lot of folks that are tired of the establishment. And the question
Hmm.
you ask is a very good question. I don't know if you're familiar with Terrence Hood.
I
You know,
am.
uh, I remember 5 years ago when I was trying to run for mayor as an independent,
Hmm.
he just got out of prison and somehow we got connected on social media. And I went over to his house and I interviewed him.
Interesting.
And he was, you know, a totally different dude. He'd been in for 13 years
Yep.
and he's somebody that's got the ear to the hood. I mean,
Hmm.
Terrence Hood, it is, that's legit. He's a car salesman now, doing a
Hmm.
great job. Somehow we got sideways. I don't know. I probably said something wrong, and Shelley Covington told him, and blah 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 whatever. Uh,
People believe he has an ear to the hood. I don't
yeah,
necessarily believe it, but I'm with you.
I know that's what I'm saying. But I would say, let's just use Curtis Hill for example. You know,
Hmm.
he grew up in Elkhart. He's married to a white woman. He pretty much grew up in a white neighborhood.
Hmm.
Well spoken.
Yeah.
There is certain categories
Sure.
that that
Well
folks look
groomed,
for.
well spoken, well educated. Absolutely.
But honestly, that shouldn't matter what color or creed or culture you come from to do that. If you want to, Jamie Rittenauer last night when she was on our show, I didn't know her at all, but
Yeah.
she is very sharp and knows what's going on. Non-establishment. People say, "Oh, I want these grassroots people." The GOP, it's a big tent, but it looks
Sure.
like a pup tent. They can only fit or the grassroots. I don't see any grass. I don't see any roots.
Real.
But they want to try to manage our city from the state level. And
Hmm.
we are trying to get Marion County to look like Marion County,
Sure.
and for them to be selective on who we let in, which is, I think, what you're trying to say with your
And this is Jamie. This
question.
is Rittenhour, right?
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
is. It shouldn't matter about that. We had, yeah, yeah. So I'm telling you,
Yeah.
she's got education's her number one thing. She's very faith based. A lot of
Hmm.
people would call her a Bible thumper. Uh,
Bible thumping Jamie.
yeah, but if you think about it,
Nobody
we
would
are,
know she's Black because I think her last name throws us off. It's like
yes,
Jamie Rittenhour.
she's got 5 kids, and she says when she wins governor, she's moving into the governor's mansion. So
Amen.
I'm just saying, she is this grassroots people that everyone's looking for. Now, are they going to get behind her? Are they going to get, and say, hey, do this? She's been working on this for quite a while. I would encourage you to go check our show out. She's going to be back on the Mouthwash Show in 2 weeks. And I
Hmm.
think we're going to get Paige Miller because she sort of put her in the slot of education, but that's her biggest thing. But Greg, back to your question, I don't think I really answered it. Uh,
Yeah, no, but I think that there's a formula. This is just my opinion, because when I look at who's been exalted, elevated, presented to the general public, um, typically, one, I'll say this: one, they're not from Indianapolis.
oh yeah.
They're not from Indianapolis. Two, they're most of them are not in the Democratic Party. I'm going somewhere. So when you think about your expo, your urban league, your civil rights commission, when you think about the people who get to play ball per se, when you think about any time you've had, like you had the Super Bowl committee, same two Black people always get to play, Tony Mason and Tanya Bell. You have the NBA All-Star committee, same two Black people get to play, Tanya Bell, Tony Mason. You have anything that goes on, same two Black people get to play, right? When you look at the Sagamore of the whatever Sagamore of the
Second
Wabash
Wabash. Yeah.
Award, it's okay. You got Tanya Bell got one, right? Greg Wilson nominated. You get Tony Mason maybe got one. Greg Wilson nominated. You get Amp Harris, who hangs with Tanya Bell. He gets one. Greg Wilson nominated. All of them hang with Eric Holcomb, but none of them have the kahunas to say, Eric, why'd you sign that bill?
Yeah. Well, and because it's a club and you ain't going to be.
There you go.
No, Greg, one of
There
the things
you
I would
go.
say.
You just answered the question.
That's true. But and I think this is where I ruffle feathers is I want you to come into the Republican Party as Greg Meriweather. I don't want to come in and say, Greg, you got to do this or that or the other thing. And I'll give you an example. I wanted to be in Wayne Township here in Marion County, we have these township chairmen for the GOP. Now, our township chairman in Wayne Township hasn't really done anything in 3 years and is stepping down.
Mm-hmm.
I asked our party chairman to do that job. I said, hey, we don't have anybody doing this. I want to plan a Lincoln Day dinner close to Lincoln's birthday and not in August. I want to get the club started. Will you let me do that? This was 2 months ago. So I had a meeting with him. We had to sit down because he likes to have coffee. We like to have coffee and talk about it person to person. I like that, but it's time consuming. And he basically read me a list of, you have to quit the mouthwash show. And I had just got done testifying on SB 52, which was the fire forcing our townships to merge with IFD. We defeated that bill. He said, well, you probably, if you do this position, you probably won't be able to testify down there. You need to do exactly what the party says, all this. And you know what I said, Greg? I said, I'll do it. I'll do all of that stuff. And I think what they were doing was testing me to see how much I would get in line. And I think they know, try to put Greg, like, what's that dirty dancing? Don't put baby in the corner or whatever. It's like, put Greg and John in the corner because we're going to come out with something to get you.
So I'm looking at Yvonne KM, and she said that the Senate Bill 202 it's not about discrimination against minorities. It's about gender, faith, and woke ideology. My question to Yvonne, gender, faith, and woke ideology. When I think about it's like so
a lot to unpack there.
Gender, faith, and woke ideology. Let's unpack really quick. What's wrong with woke ideology? What's wrong with Black people saying, yes, we were slaves as opposed to involuntary employment?
Is that what you call it? Dang.
Listen,
that doesn't sound that bad, really.
This stuff is written. It's like, so instead of just acknowledging the fact that, yes, Black people were slaves, no, we don't want to say that. We want to say that we're involuntary employees. Really?
You got the benefits of 3 squares in a cot,
like,
right?
You got no freaking benefits. You still get no benefits. You get you get to start behind 400 years, and then you still get discriminated against today. You tell me why that shouldn't be talked about. I don't care. And let's be real. Anyone who is okay with it being called an educational institution while it truly being an indoctrination institution, that's problematic. Because let's be real, a history book should be as tall as a skyscraper if we were to tell the truth. But instead we condense it to match someone else's history or to basically make it some control mechanism to give an advantage to someone, to give a false mentality to others to believe that they're greater than others simply because you erased it from a history book. You can't label a man or a woman in dealing with medicine. This is Yvonne KM. You can't label a man or woman in dealing with medicine. Let us do this. There are even in medicine, there are things in a man and a woman that are different. It's like when you talk about testosterone and you talk about all these other things that go on with men, when you talk about it's too much. And when people are trying to stretch stuff, and I want listen, I don't know which bill. Let me show this again, John, because I don't know what bill Yvonne is
It's
looking at,
confusing. It is. It's confusing to me,
because if
honestly.
I'm looking at this bill and it talks about all this other stuff, intellectual diversity, it talks about intellectual diversity, it talks about um, cultural diversity. So what I'm confused as to where she's going with this.
I don't know. And woke has gotten to be such an interesting term that has different things. I was called woke by a liberal, very liberal person, and the way they phrased it was a different kind of woke, I guess. So just think about it. I
I
think a
can only
lot of
imagine.
people. I think a lot of yeah, I know. I get it. I have a lot of friends in. And I'm like the Garth Brooks. I got friends in low places,
Yeah,
and I might be that friend that's in the low place for some people. So, uh, but I'm just, I think we're all trying to figure it out, and actually, enlightenment might be a better word of trying to figure
sure.
this out. People need to look through life through your lens, through my
There you
lens, through
go.
other people's lenses, and then we might be able to get somewhere. But I got to go back to the grace and mercy. I mean, if somebody offends you or whatever, don't get all mad on social media and go over there and just burn down their page or whatever. It's like, try to understand. I mean, I saw that you said that Cliff was giving me some garbage on some one of your social medias because you're having me on the show, and it's like, what's up? I mean, I don't like calling people names and stuff, but I got a few. I could call him a not a nice person name. How's that?
Okay.
So,
Oh,
but I will show Cliff some grace and mercy because Cliff's Cliff. I understand how Cliff
sure.
is. I understand where he lives. We all live in different areas and different places, and I think if we try to understand how it is, but I see your point on this bill is that we are saying that whatever your political view is, there's a right and there's a left. And to
Sure.
me, this is saying that the right side is not getting equal time here. And doggone it, you can't discriminate against us. We've been doing it to you for all these years. You do it to us, and now we got a problem.
Now we got a
So,
problem.
yeah. So
And so when I'm
that's what I
looking at
look at.
this, it's like amends the duties of state educational institutions, diversity committees, provides that certain offices or individuals established or employed by a state educational institution regarding diversity programming must include with the mission of the office or position programming that substantially promotes both cultural and intellectual diversity, establishes various requirements and restrictions for institutions regarding free inquiry, free expression, and intellectual diversity that does the following, and it goes so on and so forth. I'm reading the bill from off their page, so I'm not sure. Um, you know,
Yeah,
nonetheless,
it comes down to what's the point.
yeah,
It's like,
what's the point?
what's
At
the
the
point?
end of the day, what is the freaking point? The bill
What
shouldn't be there. Let's just say
if
that.
if you have a strong message that you believe in, you should be able to present it without having safety nets with whatever. I mean,
Sure.
obviously, you'll sometimes what we say, your own party will come for you
Yeah.
if it's not in their straight in their line, and this goes for both parties. I mean, it doesn't matter that like I said, it's a club and we ain't in it, and it's the sooner we learn that, the better off we'll be. But I was on the radio
So
the other day, and one of the quotes that people remembered was, I said, "I'm not very smart, but I don't quit."
that's
So,
real talk. So
yeah,
so
it's like,
Yvonne said, I follow Christ, not a party. So I believe we all should be able to understand respectfully. You know, let me say this. And I love the fact that you said that. I don't think we should ever weaponize Christ. That's just me. Because if you're a lover of Christ and you're a lover of all, and there should be no provision, there should be no advantage. Certain things would be taken away. We wouldn't call ourselves minorities and majorities, or minorities and we have minorities and majorities. We wouldn't call ourselves black, white, Latino, Irish, Polish, African. We'd call ourselves ourselves children of God. We'd respect each other as if we're the same. Simply because we have a different color does not make us different. We're different in color, but we're all still people. So when I look and I see laws and provisions being put into place that take away that human right from some while giving an advantage to others, then in my opinion, that's not Christ-like.
No,
That's
and I'd
just
say
me.
if you gotta tell somebody you're a Christian, maybe your application's not really that good. You know, I'm just I that's and sometimes, I've been in the church parking lot, leaving church and cussing somebody in the parking lot. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
We're all human. We all have good and bad days. But again, grace and mercy, please show that to somebody. And I think a lot of people culturally feel out of place, and honestly, I think a lot of people, they're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing in
Sure.
front of another group. So therefore, why would I want to go to that area?
So look
So,
at this, John. Alabama passed a sweeping bill that will prohibit diversity, equity, and inclusion at public schools and universities. Alabama lawmakers passed a bill, this is from CNN, passed a bill Tuesday that, if signed into law, would prohibit public schools and universities from maintaining or funding diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The bill, Senate Bill 129, would also require public universities to designate restrooms on the basis of biological sex, which Alabama law defines as the physical condition of being male or female, as stated in the individual's or original birth certificate, and not the gender that aligns with how a person identifies. It now heads to Governor Kay Ivey's desk, where it's expected to be signed into law. So there you have another push. Diversity, equity, and inclusion being kind of dismantled after all the we love everyone stuff happened with George Floyd.
kumbaya. How
Yeah.
about Rodney King? Can we all
Oh
get
man,
along?
we had three terms that I've seen. Three good terms of kumbaya. You had Rodney King after the verdict, right?
10 minutes.
Then you had Rodney King when it happened. Then you had the verdict of Rodney King and all hell broke loose. Then you had the 9/11 where everybody was American.
Oh, for a week we were like,
oh my God.
get him.
Yeah, exactly. Then all hell broke loose. Then you had the George Floyd stuff, and then something
All
else
hell broke
happened, and
loose.
all hell broke loose again. And here we are again back in hell.
It's like the family dynamic where a bunch of brothers and sisters are just
It's
fighting for the
insane.
macaroni at the table.
How do we stop? How do we stop with the knee-jerk reactions?
Well, I think that, again, I hate to keep going back to the, showing some mercy, but I think we have to look at people for their good things and not their shortcomings. And we have to be considerate of these things. And I know it's hard because, especially with social media, I mean, it really seems like people can just yell and scream and shout anything they want to with no consequences. If you're
Mhm.
if you're face to face with somebody, it's a lot harder to
Talk that talk.
disparage them. And once you get to know somebody, and I tell people I'm like a fungus, I grow on you. At first people
Sure.
think, just some crazy white dude that from whatever. But
Sure.
then after I build a relationship with somebody and they see that I'm not what I look like, and this goes back to the race thing and the culture thing, we aren't all a generalization of white, black, Latino. We're not all a generalization of that. Each person is an individual.
Mhm.
And we need to look at that going in and say, clean slate with this person. Don't, one of the racist most comments I ever hear is, I don't see color,
Please
or
see
I
color.
have a black friend, I'm
That
not
I never
racist. I
invite over
have a
to
black
dinner.
friend. Yeah. That I just keep
I
that
never.
black friend around. So I'm not racist. I mean, uh,
It's like a
but
safety glass.
yeah.
It's like the
So,
thing, just pull in case of fire. My
but
black friend, clever.
I'll use our relationship. So we've known each other for 3 or 4 years. You came on the Do Something Indie show way back when. And
Sure.
I'll be honest, Greg, I mean, I knew of your reputation going
Mhm.
in,
Yeah,
and you knew of my reputation, and our street cred
sure.
might be damaged with it. So I would say it was like we've tiptoed through the tulips for about 3 or 4 years before we could start having a conversation like this, a real conversation about what's up, because I mean, in this age of offending people,
Mhm.
it just doesn't take much, and then they come after you, and
Yeah, they do.
it's. I'll give you an example. Tyree Coleman. I don't know if you're familiar with Tyree Coleman. He
Yep.
was Refuge Place. We served homeless together for a while. He was a known pedophile, had been
Pedophile.
in jail,
Sure.
came out,
Yeah.
rehabilitated,
Any back in
and
jail?
yeah, well, and so he, I was helping him with the service, and with serving homeless folks, and Maurice Young. I know he was a guy. Tyree headed up that thing. We had 4 speakers there. I was speaking at his eulogy at his memorial service at the State House. But I noticed that there was some financial impropriety. And then I'm like, well, I got to distance myself from this. Well, that was about 2 years before he got in trouble again and
Again.
again. And so guess what? I got people coming after me because I was associating with him, calling me a pedophile. And
Sure.
I'm like, I should. And this was back when we had the House bill with the gender affirming gender, or as the right would call it, the gender mutilation bill.
Right.
And I was being boisterous about that. And they said, oh, well, you wouldn't know a groomer if they were right in front of you. And so I was basically thrown under the bus for this. And there was a lot of officials that went down and served with Tyree. But I was the lightning rod for that. And it was my biggest mistake was answering them. So what's that
Sure.
old proverb? If you answer a fool, it makes them justifies them.
Absolutely.
And I learned a little bit of a lesson on that. Sometimes you don't have to answer back on
Sometimes
certain
it's the
things.
best. It's the best thing
It's
that I'm a people that know I'm a Jay-Z fanatic. One thing I love about Jay-Z is the fact that no matter what's in the media, no matter how they diss him on records, he knows his power to the degree where he says nothing. He leaves it on the table because he's like, me acknowledging you allows my following to acknowledge you, which boosts you. And at that point, if I give you more power, then you're just going to use more power to come at me, and then there are going to
right.
be others to come at me. So ignoring it is possibly one of the best things to do. So I want to touch on this really quickly before we get out of here. So I'm going to share this because you got to come back. I mean, now you've made yourself
I've broken this field. I've broken this.
Yeah, you've made yourself a pillar in this.
Well, my hat's off to you trying to do this show. Now you're doing the show every day, pretty much, or
yeah, for the most part, man.
It's fun.
It's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
People don't
People
understand how much work this is.
Trying to herd the cats and chasing the butterflies on the back of
hear
turtles.
Me?
Trying to get yes.
So it says, what we know about Trump's failure to arrange a $500 million bond. Donald Trump's lawyers told a judge that their client could not come up with the collateral needed to stave off efforts to collect a $454 million judgment. He has 6 days left. And when I look at this, it's like, so when we see this, what are we seeing? Tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, first off, I am not a Trump fan.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, oh, whatever. I mean, you either got to be or you don't got to be. It's dangerous being in the middle of any of this. Now, I'm certainly not a Biden fan either, but
Sure.
I mean, how in the world did we get down to the point where we got these two guys as our choices? I mean, it's just the way that it is. It shows the tension we have in our country right now. And this right here, I don't know, as a businessman, I'm appalled, that I don't care if you love Trump, hate Trump, don't whatever, but some people justify this. That dirty dog's getting what he deserves. I hope he goes broke. They're hoping the worst for this guy. But man, this seems a little bit out of kilter. It seems like
it says he exaggerated the property values and in turn his own net worth to obtain favorable loan terms from banks and insurers. According to Ms. James, at the trial, which lasted months, Ms. James's lawyer showed that Mr. Trump's company had ignored appraisals and manipulated numbers to sometimes absurd heights. For example, the former president had valued his triplex apartment in Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue as if it were 30,000 square feet. For years, it's actually 10,996 square feet. Now, I'm gonna say this: I know people who were appraisers who went to prison simply because they heightened or hiked up the claim of whatever said property was in order to be able to get some greater valuation.
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody that's probably gone and got a car, or I know a guy that was getting pay stubs. They selling the pay stubs. I know people that sell pay stubs so you could say you got a job for so long. I kid you not.
Oh,
I've seen,
wow.
and they actually put it on Facebook. that they were doing this. And I'm like, okay. And this was to get a car loan or whatever. I don't think it's right. And saying that everybody does it's not right.
Hmm.
But I mean, at some point, you look at this and say, is this, I mean, we should have a right to appeal something without having to fork out. I mean, actually, what the Mega Millions is up to like 800 and something million. Hey,
Hmm.
Trump just needs to start picking some numbers. And if he
Facts.
wins that, he gets that full payout and he's good to go. I think the drawing's like, coming up. So maybe that's what's going to happen. But to me, that's like, it just seems crazy. It just doesn't seem fair.
So
I
it
mean,
says
it doesn't
Mr.
seem
Trump asked an appeals court either to pause the fraud
fair.
judgment while he appeals it or to accept a lesser bond of 100 million. The court could rule this week. Although Ms. James could have moved to collect the 454 million immediately, she offered a 30-day grace period which ends on March 25th. Ms. James could still grant additional time for Mr. Trump to pay or show mercy to the former president by offering a counter proposal. So basically, if this doesn't happen, is I mean, okay, so this I'm trying to see if it says if so it doesn't show basically what's going to happen if he doesn't, but it looks like that his run
They'll start seizing the
season and
assets
stuff.
because if you can't appeal it, it goes. I mean, once
One
your appeal's done.
one realtor said that if he sells Mar-a-Lago, he could cover it. It was
Yeah,
like
I
he could
mean,
sell it for over 500 million.
yeah, I mean, liquid assets and
Be
assets are two
homeless.
different things. Yeah, well, and you think about it, these people that get into the presidency, they usually end up having a lot more money than going out. Trump's one of the
Absolutely.
first ones that's lost
Going
money.
backwards.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe not a good as businessman as he is.
Yeah, him and that
So,
Rudy, man. Rudy got hit pretty hard too, for his involvement with this as well. So I'm gonna ask you this last question, man, and then we can wrap it up. From your perspective right now, is the GOP party good for black and or let's say I want to say black or African American people? If so, why?
okay, I'm going to tell you the answer, and this is a two-part answer. This is about complacency with the Democrat Party first and foremost. With we have the black vote, we don't have. We're going to say this. We're going to give you some crumbs and some funding, and you just keep on coming down and voting for us. We're good. In the Republican Party, they're starving for minority involvement.
Hmm.
Now the problem is they throw two of the minorities off of the debate stage for God. There's the actions. It's like I said, if you shouldn't have to tell people you're a Christian. We shouldn't have to tell people that we want diversity in the party. Let's just show some folks. So
Right.
I would say what we're trying to do in Marion County is we want to actually have a big tent. We
Sure.
want. I would love to have someone like you, Craig Meriweather, to join our cause in Marion County. Now, I'm going to tell folks right now, the state GOP ain't going to like what looks like in Marion County because the rural Indiana is not Marion County at all. So we need to get people that look like Marion County and not just two or three, token minorities. We
Sure.
need voices. And my pledge to anyone that wants to get in a minority or anyone that wants to get in that, hey, pay attention to what we're doing because
Yeah.
we want to amplify your voice. Your voice by yourself is one thing, but when you get into a group of people, that's when you start moving the needle. And that's what I would say that it is ripe for people to come in. And I think that right now with the turmoil that we have, that this state establishment club that we ain't in is getting ready to get their shutters ruffled. It's coming, and I'm not. We're just going to do it. It's not a
Yeah.
threat. It's not anything, but this is what we are doing. I see people getting excited. I give you one quick stat. I don't know we're short on time here.
Well, go ahead, man.
2018, we had for the midterm voting between 2018 and 2022, we have lost 80,000 voters. We have not lost that many people. Those are voters, both sides. We have not lost that many people in Marion County. What that tells me is that people have given up. What I'm promoting today is hope and listening to your voice. And that is what happens. This isn't about one person. We have a team of people that are working together that want to welcome new folks that want to get involved, and we're getting them involved at the precinct level. If they want to be a state delegate, if they just want to come to club meetings and just get involved, because it just takes a little bit of time to get involved with what's going on. And then maybe we can elect some people like Greg Meriweather to mayor that will straighten some crap out instead of just go to the Shamrock Parade and dance around in a leprechaun suit and act like they're mayor. Oh,
Definitely wouldn't do that.
yeah, I know that. Well, I mean, you're so sharp dressed, man. It's like, come on, I want to tease. It's like you got a cool suit on. It's like,
no, sir.
I love our conversations.
Let me say this. Thank you, one, for John, for coming. Two, I'll say this. When becoming mayor, I will wear a green suit. It just won't be a leprechaun suit.
Yeah. You're not going to go dance up in front of the black churches.
Not going to happen.
Okay.
I can walk in freely.
Freely.
So, man, I appreciate you coming, man. Let's get together, bring you back, have some more conversations, because when stuff is going on with the GOP, I want to turn to someone to be able to have this conversation. And hopefully, man, we can continue enlightening and educating and talking to people so that we can ensure that people know what's going on. So I appreciate you, my friend, and look forward to speaking with you. Thank you so much, John.
I just appreciate you having me on, and everybody keep the faith, keep the hope, grace and mercy.
Amen, brother. I'll talk to you soon, John. Have a great one, brother. All right, man. That was John Schmitz, man. That was great to talk to him, man. I'm telling you, when it's all said and done, man, these are the conversations we have to have. We have to be able to sometimes cross the line, go over there, talk to people, stop being afraid to share information, share knowledge, share your disagreements. Thank you, Yvonne, KM, for even getting on here and really talk about it. Because when it's all said and done, the only way we fix things when we disagree is by communicating what we disagree about, right? And that's what we want to do on the show. So with that being said, man, ending out the show, we always do a verse of the day, man. Make sure you share the show because we want more people to be enlightened and involved. So our verse today comes from Matthew chapter 22, verse 36 through 40, King James Version. It says, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto them, Thou shalt love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto you. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Man, loving God with everything you have to me means everything. And being able to do this is only being done because of my love for him. I love him to the degree where I love all people. When it's all said and done, as I stated earlier, we are people. We're children of God. And we may look different, sound different, but when it's all said and done, we're more alike than we are different. And then the other thing is, man, you have to love people like you love you. And if you don't love you, it'll show. It'll show in how you are with people. When you don't love yourself, it's very difficult to love anybody. It's really virtually impossible to love anyone when you don't love yourself. So the first part of that I want to say is this: learn how to love you. Learn how to love you. And I believe that when you learn how to love you, you'll learn how to love others. And then, man, what a great world. What a great relationships. What great relationships you'll be able to build. So this has been your host, man. It's been your brother, Greg Meriweather. On No Apologies, please share the show. People ask all the time, how do I help? You help by sharing the voice. And then by sharing the voice, man, you can help the community, because then we'll be better and enlightened and more educated. This has been your brother. Y'all have a great one. Peace.